She came strutting up the gravel road like she owned the place, dragging 3 strangers behind her in heels and city clothes. One man carried a clipboard, another had a camera, and the woman in red sunglasses kept whispering like she was already picturing the living room. Karen didn't even knock. She yanked on my front gate, shook it, and shouted, "This property belongs to the HOA, and we're here to do an inspection." I stood in the shadows of the porch, calm but boiling inside. My cabin was mine, bought fair and square. No HOA, no committee, no one had a claim on it. Yet there she was, parading guests up like it was an open house. The clipboard guy smiled at me politely, thinking it was all normal, and Karen puffed her chest like she was giving a tour of her empire. "You can't just lock yourself in there," she barked, slamming her palm against the gate. "These buyers need to see what's inside before it hits the market." I almost laughed. Buyers? Market? She had lost her mind. I leaned closer to the gate, keeping my voice low so only she heard me. "Karen, you should turn around. Right now." Her grin widened. "Or what? You'll call the sheriff? Go ahead! They answer my calls, not yours!" She pulled a folded paper from her purse, waved it like it was law, and shoved it through the bars. But before anyone could blink, I twisted the latch, slid the lock shut with a loud clank, and walked back up the porch. Then I flicked off every light inside the cabin. The whole place sank into darkness, just the way I wanted it. Behind me, Karen's voice cracked the silence. "He thinks he can scare us. He has no idea who he's dealing with." And she was right about one thing. I hadn't even started yet. The night grew heavier around the cabin, and the only sound left was the restless shuffle of Karen's guests. One of them whispered nervously, "Are you sure this is legal?" Karen snapped back, "Do you want this deal or not? He's just squatting here. Once he's gone, this whole property falls under HOA authority." I watched from the upstairs window, phone in my hand, recording every word. They thought darkness meant I'd vanished, but I saw them clear. The man with the clipboard tried the gate again, locked tight. The woman in sunglasses muttered, "This doesn't feel right, Karen." Karen hissed through her teeth, "Shut up and follow me." She motioned them toward the side fence like she'd done this 100 times before. My jaw tightened. Trespassing, breaking and entering, all while pretending she had authority. Just as they reached the corner post, I clicked a switch inside. A floodlight flared on above the shed, blinding them for a second. The camera guy dropped his bag. The woman screamed. Karen, though, didn't flinch. She just raised that fake document higher, like it could shield her. "This cabin is condemned," she yelled into the light. "You're living here illegally, and we're repossessing it tonight." I stepped out onto the porch, slow and steady. "Condemned, huh? Funny, because the deed is in my pocket." Her smile faltered for the first time. She hadn't expected me to stand my ground, not like this, but she didn't back down either. Instead, she pulled out her phone, waving it like a weapon. "Then let's have the cops decide. I'll make the call right now." And that's when I knew the real game was about to begin.
Karen's voice echoed through the night as she pressed her phone to her ear, pacing in front of the locked gate like she was orchestrating a stage play. "Yes, officer, urgent situation, a squatter, dangerous, refusing to leave," she said loudly enough for me to hear every word. She even added a little tremble in her voice, like she was the victim here. The woman in sunglasses whispered, "Karen, maybe we should just go." But Karen cut her off with a sharp glare. "No, he's done. By the time the police get here, this cabin will be ours." I leaned against the porch rail, keeping my calm. The truth was, I wasn't scared of the cops showing up. I knew something Karen didn't. 2 deputies from the county already knew me, had eaten dinner at this cabin just last week. They knew the deed, the paperwork, everything. Still, I stayed quiet, letting her dig her own hole deeper. She strutted back toward the gate, holding up that fake document again. This is official HOA notice. You're trespassing on association land," she shouted, her voice breaking with fake authority. I finally spoke, low but sharp. "Karen, you should have checked who actually owns this mountain before you called the cops." Her eyes narrowed. "What are you talking about?" I let a smirk slip. "Let's just say the sheriff doesn't answer to you tonight." For a second, silence hung heavy. Even her guests looked uncomfortable in the gravel. But before anyone could speak again, headlights appeared at the far end of the road, cutting through the dark trees. 2 patrol cars were rolling up the hill, sirens off but lights flashing. Karen's face lit up like she'd already won. She spread her arms wide, ready to greet them like her soldiers. "Finally! Now what, squatter? You're about to be thrown out on your back." What she didn't know was that the man stepping out of that first cruiser wasn't coming for me.
The cruiser door swung open, and out stepped Sheriff Dalton, broad-shouldered, steady, the kind of man who didn't waste words. His boots crunched on the gravel as he adjusted his hat and glanced between Karen and the locked gate. The second car pulled in behind, 2 deputies climbing out, hands resting casually near their belts. Karen bolted forward, waving her phone and that crumpled paper. "Sheriff, thank God you're here. This man broke into this cabin. He's refusing to leave. I demand you arrest him immediately." She shoved the paper into Dalton's chest like it was a badge of authority. Dalton didn't even take it. He just looked at her, then at me, standing calmly on the porch. "Evening, John," he said, like we'd just run into each other at the diner. I nodded. "Evening, Sheriff." Karen froze. "Wait, you know him?" Dalton tilted his head, finally glancing at the paper Karen had pushed at him. One look and his brow furrowed. He held it up under his flashlight, then let out a sharp breath that sounded more like a laugh. "This isn't even real," he said flatly. "Looks like something printed off a website. Wrong county seal, wrong date, wrong everything." He flicked the paper back to her like trash. Karen's smile cracked. "No, that's official." "Official?" Dalton cut her off, his voice like steel. "John owns this land free and clear. I've seen the deed myself. You're trespassing and dragging strangers out here in the middle of the night." He glanced at the clipboard guy, who looked like he wanted to disappear. Karen's cheeks burned red, but instead of backing down, she crossed her arms tight. "You're making a mistake, Sheriff. The HOA—" Dalton's jaw clenched. "Lady, there's no HOA out here, not one recognized by this county. So either you and your guests walk yourselves back to your car, or my deputies will be glad to escort you." The silence after his words was heavy, broken only by the distant chirp of crickets. Karen opened her mouth, but nothing came out. Her guests shifted awkwardly, realizing they'd been dragged into a mess. I stayed quiet, watching her squirm, because deep down, I knew Karen wasn't the type to leave without trying one last dirty move.